This is Helldivers 2 during the 6th year of development. During this stage, Arrowhead Studios, the team behind Helldivers 2, were completely and utterly exhausted. Everything that could possibly go wrong with making a game had just gone wrong, and nobody at the studio thought it would even be remotely successful. The day before launch, the morale at the studio was at its lowest point ever, with the team feeling like they were stuck in a prison with no escape in sight. This is the turbulent story of Helldivers 2 and its near-decade-long development, during which the studio had crippling self-doubt and anxiety, yet just somehow still managed to set the entire gaming industry on fire. When Arrowhead Studios began putting the finishing touches on the first Helldivers game, the studio was only 10 people. Towards the back half of development, they would expand to roughly 16. They also had roughly the same amount of employees working on their previous game, Gauntlet, which was released back in 2014. So the first thing that Arrowhead did was merge these two teams together to begin development of Helldivers 2. And almost immediately, issues started to pop up. Because Arrowhead was so used to a very small team dynamic, there would be lots of instances where previously, if someone wanted to change something within the game, all they had to do was go to the person who was responsible for implementing the change. But now, they would also have to inform multiple other engineers in order to have everybody on the same exact page. This core problem caused chaos in not only the development of Helldivers 2, but also within the studio itself, which would start to snowball a bit later on in development. The reason why they didn't change this way of communicating was because Arrowhead wanted to remain indie for so long and absolutely hated the idea of becoming a massive studio. They had direct funding from Sony to build out Helldivers 2, so money wasn't entirely a problem for the small studio at the time. Helldivers 2 was originally conceived as a 3-year project, which the team at Arrowhead Game Studios thought would be easy, since they already had a solid foundation with the first game. Both Helldivers 1 and the new project would be built on top of the Autodesk Stingray engine. And not a lot of games were built on the Stingray engine prior to Helldivers 2. Here's a full list of games that you may know that were built on this engine. Because the development team was already familiar with the engine's capabilities and had workflows built around it from the first Helldivers game, they believed it would be a more efficient choice than switching to a different engine like Unity or Unreal. According to Arrowhead Chief Creative Officer Johan Pilestedt, they were not interested in engines that were essentially level editors. They wanted a lightweight, flexible engine that would allow their engineers to modify and expand it as needed during development. They wanted to build their game exactly as they had envisioned it, and they felt that Stingray allowed them to do just that without the hard-coded dependencies they perceived in other engines. And if you have no idea what hard-coded dependencies mean, that's okay, because today's sponsor will help fix that. Boot.dev. Boot.dev is a highly interactive way to learn how to code. You can earn XP, complete quests, and fight bosses by learning how to create an HTTP server in Go. Not only can you learn a specific programming language, but Boot.dev allows you to learn every single thing you need in order to build an actual project from the ground up. From things as simple as an asteroids game to projects where you build an AI agent in Python. The breadth of content available on Boot.dev is simply astonishing. And since learning how to code can be a bit daunting, you can always reach out to Boots, Your personal AI tutor that's been trained on every single lesson and has full context of what you're learning. Or join the boot.dev official Discord channel where everyone is on a path to learning. You can check out boot.dev and use code POUNDER to get 25% off your entire first year on their annual plan. And again, thanks to boot.dev for sponsoring this video. Now, let's see how the Helldivers team started their venture. The team began creating concept arts, concept character models, and began experimenting with the third-person perspective, which was a giant departure from Helldivers 1. During this time, they had outlined some core internal pillars that they would follow closely during the development of the game. But one massive problem that Arrowhead made very early on was that they skipped the entire pre-production stage of development. Typically, the pre-production stage is the stage where studios wouldn't actually be building out the game, but planning the course of development. Arrowhead was very confident in their initial idea and dove straight into full production, believing they knew exactly where the game was heading. In their heads, they thought Helldivers 2 would just be Helldivers 1, but in the third-person perspective. Again, Arrowhead's chief creative officer, Johan Pilestedt, has publicly stated that skipping pre-production was a really bad idea. They felt they already knew where the game was going to go based on the first Helldivers game and previous experience, so they bypassed the planning and prototyping phase of development. But in 2018, the Stingray engine that they had used thus far during development was abruptly discontinued by Autodesk. This left the team in a very difficult position. Do they continue building the game in this now discontinued engine? Or do they switch over to an engine like Unreal for better developer support? The team at Arrowhead made the risky decision to just maintain the now dead engine themselves and update it as they went further along in development. The CEO of Arrowhead said it best in that Arrowhead had to rely on crazy engineers that had to do everything with no support. So just 2 years into development, the game had no pre-production stage, their main engine they used to build the game got discontinued halfway through development, and they were extremely behind schedule. Already, this is shaping up to be a disaster, but it was about to get much worse. Helldivers 2 in 2019 was in full crisis mode. Since they skipped their pre-production stage of development, they had no playbook for risk mitigation, and one of the biggest things that could possibly have gone wrong had just gone wrong. With the Autodesk Stingray engine officially discontinued, the team had to spend significant resources, turning the existing engine into a custom tool built specifically for just one game. And as Arrowhead began retooling the dead engine, they also had to onboard new employees to help them build out the game. Bringing new people up to speed on a project with a problematic engine caused even more slowdown. While the technical teams were hard at work at building the components of the engine, the design teams also had to increase the scope of what Helldivers 2 was going to be. Originally, Helldivers 2 was aiming to be a free-to-play launch title for the PS5, but ultimately, moving to a paid model allowed Arrowhead to create a much fairer and player-friendly in-game economy. Back in 2019 to early 2020, live service games like Fortnite were taking the industry by storm, and Arrowhead wanted to enter the live service space, but on their own accord. They were in the mindset that they had to earn the right to monetize instead of forcing it immediately.
But don't charge $70 upfront and then ask somebody, then nickel and dime people for skins. It's like, it just is wrong. So be kind to users and do live service right. by asking yourself what is the value for the gamers in this game being live service rather than what is good for the bank account.
This is where the idea that players can earn the premium currency, super credits, by simply playing the game came to be. While the game was effectively going through a reboot at this time, they would also revisit the core of what made Helldivers 2 so great. They wanted to make Helldivers 2 into a hobby that you can experience continuously, and one that would evolve alongside the community. And if you're in the loop with Helldivers, you already know about Joel. Joel is effectively the dungeon master behind Helldivers 2. He directly influences the ongoing galactic war and the events throughout the game. Instead of a pre-scripted or static story, he introduces real-time events that change depending on how players complete global events. This was their life service strategy. One that wouldn't be on a set path, but one that would evolve with the community based on the collective actions of the player base. Like I said before, Arrowhead began ditching their small team vibe for a more organized, larger workforce approach as the game grew in scale. And as the engine was slowly starting to come together into a stable state, the new staff members at Arrowhead also began having a much easier time with building out the game. Things were starting to take shape, and the game was finally on a very long path forward. From 2021 onward, the game was starting to take the form of what we would now know and love of Helldivers 2. This screenshot is from summer of 2022. From this point on, the game underwent a complete overhaul of the look of its biomes. This year-long effort was managed by a single material artist, and this type of workload wasn't unique to just this individual. The studio was still very small, and every single person had a big part to play in the development of the game. Johan Pielstedt admitted that after their 6 long years, the team couldn't tell what kind of game they were making. They were filled with so much self-doubt that they couldn't recognize the qualities that testers were praising. The team was flat out tired at this point and completely burnt out. Johan stated that he was so far into development that he could not remember what the beginning looked like and couldn't see an end to it either, which made the experience feel perpetual, almost like a prison.
We're so far into development that I can't remember the beginning. And I can't see an end to it either. It feels perpetual.
They had lost perspective to such a degree that they didn't trust anybody. Even though the playtesters were saying things along the lines of Helldivers 2 being the best game they've ever played, internally at Arrowhead, they thought, oh, they're just saying that to make us get to the end or just being kind. Morale at the studio was at its all-time lowest the day before launch. The spirit of the team wasn't one of excitement of releasing a game, but a sense of relief that they were finally being let go from the hellish development. What really pushed the team through the final stages of development was collective commitment to creating something wonderful. But despite the near zero level of excitement or hype within Arrowhead to release the game, it had to come out. And on February 8th of 2024, the game was finally unleashed. Almost immediately, the studio was hit with the reality that they had a massive hit on their hands. They had a monitor showing the player count, which started to go up at an unbelievable rate. They were in complete disbelief and filled with an ecstatic enthusiasm over how well they were doing, as they had nowhere near the success that the game had achieved in their forecasts. Immediately, over the span of the first couple of hours of releasing the game, the team went from a solemn mindset to one of immense joy and enthusiasm. But this wouldn't last long. Joy quickly turned to chaos. The player count dropped like a rock because the servers crashed as they were only able to handle 150,000 players. Johan saw the servers actually crashing and burning. The team immediately abandoned their release party to fix the problem. Johan was left with a mix of ecstatic enthusiasm, coupled with how could we have been so wrong in estimating the game's popularity. Realizing they had to do something, the game needed Arrowhead, now more than ever. While Helldivers 2 released on the right track, they certainly weren't in the clear just yet. At launch, the game immediately became a smash hit, netting over 700,000 concurrent players across Steam and PS5. Arrowhead's initial server capacity planning was based on conservative estimates. They had expected a total peak concurrent player count of around 250,000 players across PC and PS5. Within days of launch in February, the game not only met but repeatedly shattered the capacity expectations. Arrowhead immediately increased the peak concurrent player capacity to 360,000 concurrent users, but this was exceeded within minutes of being implemented. I mean, on Steam alone, the highest concurrent player count of Helldivers 2 achieved almost 500,000 players. Drastic changes had to be made on the backend in order to smoothly support the high influx of players. Arrowhead implemented a rate limiter, aka a queue system, to prevent the entire system from failing under the massive load. This system denied connection requests above a certain volume per minute. Johan confirmed that they increased this limit from 10,000 per minute to 20,000 per minute in an early fix. And for the players who did manage to get in, the high traffic overloaded the backend services, causing massive desync issues with the game. Arrowhead's CEO stated that the game's initial codebase was only designed for a small idea, but the final game was enormous. Very quickly, Arrowhead would fix the launch problems, since most of the issues were stemming from the fact that they genuinely did not expect anywhere near the amount of players they had. Soon enough, launch was behind them and the ship was beginning to set course. Despite the technical problems that the team faced post-launch, they still managed to work with what they had. Throughout the evolution of Helldivers 2, Arrowhead kept releasing new biomes, enemy types, and new story threads that were driven by community engagement. Now, in 2025, the game is starting to break at the seams, according to Arrowhead. The earlier technical problems are now absolutely unavoidable, and the game is now in a state where the developers are paying for the price for their technical debt and long outstanding bugs. The team is now focused on addressing the health of the game over new features and expansions. But regardless of what state the game is currently in, it is very clear to everybody that Helldivers 2 was a massive success. Only time will tell what Arrowhead's next game will look like, but I'm praying they're able to move away from their Frankenstein engine. And again, a quick thank you to boot.dev for sponsoring this video. Feel free to check them out with the link in the description or in the pinned comments to get started today. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.